Hello, I'm Mr. Sinolit, aka Wenxue Shensheng, and welcome to Sinolit. Today we're reviewing a book called Autumn in the Heavenly Kingdom by Stephen Platt, about the rise and the subsequent downfall of what became known as the Taiping天谷, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, in the late 1800s during the last imperial dynasty of China, the Qing. This story focuses on two people at opposite sides of the rebellion. One, Hong Xiuchuan, a cousin of the Hong Xiuchuan, who, driven to despair after taking and failing the clergy, the entrance examination for a position as a civil servant in China, comes to believe that he is in fact the brother of Jesus Christ. Begins a rebellion that we call the Taiping Rebellion, setting up his own country within the Qing dynasty. On the other side, a general of the Qing dynasty who was actually a civil servant, never wanted to be a general in the first place, a man known as Zheng Guofan. And in a way, this book highlights what I've been talking about in almost every video since I started Sinolit. The importance of the imperial entrance examination and the core texts, known as the four texts to Chinese civilization, is highlighted and really exemplified by this book. Because the two leaders on the opposite sides of this battle were, in a way, reactions to the imperial entrance exam. So on the one hand, we have Hong Xiuchuan, who unfortunately does not get the degree he needs to become a civil servant, and is driven to despair by this. And on the other side, Zheng Guofan, the person who passed the civil servant's exam, going to Beijing, becoming a civil servant, and in the end opposing this rebellion. Now, as the rebellion starts in southern China, Hong Xiuchuan finds himself escaping the chaos towards Hong Kong, which was by then a colony of sorts, and meets a Swedish missionary there, working with him to translate his sermons to locals. Hong Xiuchuan ends up meeting James Legge, who was the first translator of the Confucian classic, the Lunyu. In fact, the translator of the Lunyu copy I have here, translation by Mr. James Legge, and actually helped him translate the Analects, a cousin of the man who was driven to despair by studying this book, actually helped with its translation. Now, detached from his cousin in the inner mainland, Hong Xiuchuan only hears stories of what's going on in the rebellion. And it is that perspective that we read in this book. We don't really know how it comes about that Hong Xiuchuan, the leader of the Taiping Rebellion, takes Nanjing and gathers a territory, because it's all via hearsay and what comes down the river as news to the settlers in Shanghai and Hong Kong. He leaves to join the movement, rejoining them in Nanjing and becoming a shield king to the Hong Xiuchuan. And from here he looks to modernize China. In fact, in many ways that didn't happen until 50 years later. The emphasis on technology, education, science. At the beginning, because it's nominally a Christian movement, many missionaries and Christian organizations back in Britain were firm supporters of the Taiping Tianguo, whilst businessmen and the state remained slightly aloof and wanted to stay out of the internal rebellion. And in fact, it's history that writes the name for us. We know it as the Taiping Rebellion, not Taiping Civil War, or for the very reason that in the end the businessmen and the state do step in on behalf of the Qing dynasty in Beijing in order to restore order for their business interests. About halfway through the book, we get to see the opposing character, Zheng Guofan, a career civil servant who never meant to be a general, ends up finding himself in control of the Hunan army that was used to put down the Taiping rebellion. A careful and bookish man, and in the end he grinds down the Taiping rebellion with a little bit of help from Western boats. And this is something that it's overemphasized how much the British or European soldiers had to play in this. They actually played a very minor role, only really causing a big difference with helping out shuttle dynasty forces down the Yangtze River under the flags of British ships, because the Taiping soldiers wouldn't fire on those ships. The Man ethnic minority who still exists now in China, they made up the entirety of the imperial dynasty, ruling from the 1600s to the early 1900s. And they were in fact controlling China at the time. So there's another aspect to this, which was that the Taiping rebellion was actually made up mostly of Kejia people to begin with, which is a minority that still exists in China, although it's not officially recognized as one of the 56. It actually became more of a movement towards ridding China of its ethnic overlords. What the Taiping rebellion did was in fact remind people that, hey, this is a ruling foreign entity that are ruling the country, and in fact many followers flocked to them because of this very reason. And it's interesting to note that Sun Yat-sen was called by many of his followers the new Hong Xiuchuan, drawing parallels between the nationalist movement of China and this one around 50 years before. It was seen as a forerunner by many. Victory of the Qing dynasty only really delays its downfall. It doesn't shore it up at all. A large part of this book is made up of describing how Zheng Guofan's army grinds down the Taiping, and this means that the book is unable to focus on what Hong Xiuchuan himself was doing. And this seems like something that is a shame that it misses, because the author has such a keen eye for connections in history that really are enlightening. And it's a shame that he loses focus on what Hong Xiuchuan was doing himself in the capital, Nanjing. Felt like that was something that was lacking from this book. But on the other hand, I highly recommend this to anyone interested in late imperial dynasty China, how it actually worked, and its interactions with foreign powers during the 1800s are well explored here.